I'm Tara Merchiner. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, pause and effect. The United States and China extend their trade truce for another 90 days. What it means for the U.S. economy. Capitol drill. National Guard troops arrive in Washington, D.C. amid an emergency public safety order. How lawmakers are responding. Making waves, dramatic footage from the South China Sea as two Chinese warships collide. Plus, seeking a fast solution. An international group of religious sisters unveils an initiative to pray for peace around the world. How you can take part. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
And thank you for being with us on the Feast of Saint Jane Frances de Chantal. Our top story tonight. President Donald Trump says trillions of dollars are being taken in on tariffs, and tariffs have not caused inflation. The president posted those comments after today's economic report revealed inflation was unchanged in July, better than economists expected. But some governors blast the president's tariffs, warning families will take a financial hit. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Good evening, Tara. The Consumer Price Index coming in at 2.7% in the month of July. Economists have predicted 2.8%. And tonight, President Trump defending his tariffs.
On Truth Social, President Donald Trump defends his tariffs, writing, "It has been shown that for the most part, consumers aren't even paying these tariffs. It is mostly companies and governments, many of them foreign, picking up the tabs." And in the White House press briefing room today, Caroline Leavitt tells reporters the president wants to restore wealth back to the United States.
Through the powerful use of tariffs, and that's what he's focused on doing, while simultaneously driving down costs.
Stocks got a lift from hopes that the better-than-expected inflation report will give the Federal Reserve leeway to cut interest rates at its next meeting in September. On social media, as he's done before, the president unloads on the Fed chair, writing, "Jerome Too Late Powell must now lower the rate." The press secretary's message to small businesses across the country: "You have never had a better ally in the White House than President Trump."
Tackling inflation, deregulating, cutting costs, cutting red tape to make it easier for small business owners to thrive. And again, the economic indicators show that we are moving in the right direction.
Meanwhile, 90 days. That's how long President Trump has extended a trade truce with China. The pause buying time for the two countries to work out some of their differences. Just yesterday, the president telling reporters,
"They've been dealing quite nicely. The relationship is very good with President Xi and myself."
But Governor Gretchen Whitmer posts today on social media, "Here's what Republicans in Washington won't tell you about tariffs. They're really a tax on you and your family." And the governor of New York recently posting, "Massive price hikes are coming for New York families because of Donald Trump's tariffs."
Also tonight, that 3-month pause or truce between the U.S. and China clears the way for a possible summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
All right, Owen, thank you. Well, as President Trump plans to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin later this week, European leaders make an urgent plea. The two were set to meet on Friday in Alaska to discuss bringing an end to the war in Ukraine. European leaders today appealed to President Trump to defend their security interests during the meeting. They were disappointed when President Trump said Ukraine may have to give up some Russia-held land. Their major fear is that Putin may set his sights on other European countries if he wins Ukraine. Well, Washington, D.C. is under an emergency public safety order. As we've reported, President Trump is sending 800 National Guard members to help patrol city streets and remove homeless encampments. Members of Congress who work and live part-time in the nation's capital are weighing in. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us now with the latest. Eric.
Well, good evening, Tara. Yes, this issue hits close to home for several lawmakers. You may recall it was 2 years ago that a congresswoman was attacked in an elevator of her condo just blocks from the U.S. Capitol. And most recently, an aide to Senator Rand Paul was nearly killed, and a House intern died at a random attack. Now, Democrats argue that all these were isolated incidents, and President Trump deploying the National Guard is simply a way to divert attention.
I think we're still trying to understand what exactly the public emergency is and how this will be effectuated over the next 30 days. But the facts remain. This was unprecedented and unnecessary. Violent crime in the district is at a 30-year low.
The president's emergency order expires in a month, but Congress is already stepping in. House Oversight Committee Chair Congressman James Comer wants D.C. leaders to testify before his committee when lawmakers return in September. He issued a statement supporting President Trump's actions. Quote, President Trump is rightly using executive power to take bold and necessary action to crack down on crime and restore law and order in Washington, D.C. For years, the D.C. Council's radical soft-on-crime agenda has emboldened criminals and put public safety at risk in our nation's capital. Democrats claim there is no public safety issue.
This has nothing to do with the safety of people in Washington, D.C. The most violent cities are in Republican states, and there's no federal government, there's no National Guard, there's no U.S. military coming into those cities.
Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi called out President Trump. She says he did not show the same urgency during the January 6th riot at the Capitol. She posted on X, quote, now he's activating the D.C. Guard to distract from his incompetent mishandling of tariffs, healthcare, education, and immigration, just to name a few blunders. But the head of the Washington Police Union called the federal intervention into the city's police, quote, a critical stopgap. The U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia says that the president's deployment of the National Guard in Washington, D.C. is, quote, just the beginning. Meanwhile, Republican Senator Mike Lee of Utah is pushing legislation to end D.C.'s 50-year-old home rule law, which allows its 700,000 residents to elect a mayor and city council members to oversee local matters, even policing. Senator Lee says that the federal government needs to be in charge of the District of Columbia. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
All right, Eric, thank you. As Eric mentioned, President Trump has emphasized the importance of removing Washington, D.C.'s homeless population. Today, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt gave more details of the plan.
Homeless individuals will be given the option to leave their encampment, to be taken to a homeless shelter, to be offered addiction or mental health services, and if they refuse, they will be susceptible to fines or to jail time. This federalizing of the National Guard to bring in this assistance for law enforcement while we are targeting criminals and trying to remove criminals off of the streets. We also want to make DC safe and beautiful, and that involves removing mentally disturbed individuals and homeless encampments as well.
And St. Pope John Paul II summarized the Church's view on homelessness in a letter to Pontifical Commission Justitia et Pax. The Church saying, sharing the joy and hope, the grief and anguish of the people of our time, especially those who are poor or affected in any way, feels it has a serious obligation to join with those who are working without self-interest and with dedication to find concrete and urgent solutions to the housing problem and to see that the homeless receive the necessary attention and concern on the part of public authorities. And for more, we are joined by Abby Hutzel. She is the media spokesperson for the Father McKenna Center. It is a nonprofit organization in the Ignatian Catholic tradition which helps men struggling with homelessness and families facing food insecurity in Washington, D.C. First, what is your reaction to President Trump's plan to get homeless people out of Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, thank you for having me. First, I just want to say that this is not the first time that we've seen the criminalization of homelessness within the Capitol, but it is the most robust plan that we've seen recently. I just want to start off by saying that homeless people are not criminals. They just cannot afford housing. Low-income housing is very hard to find within the Capitol, especially even just paying electricity bills. That can be hard to come by nowadays. So it's unprecedented, it's unlawful, and it doesn't treat them as human beings within our society.
In your opinion, does moving them out resolve the crisis in any way, or are you concerned that it's just going to mask the problem?
I mean, I do think that it is masking the problem. I don't think that we've seen any very concrete plans of where the homeless individuals are going to go. If they are going anywhere, they're going into more rural areas where there's less resources accessible to them by public transport, which then furthers the problem and increases just the mental, it just increases the problem overall.
As far as your operations go, do you think you're going to need to expand with this latest executive order? What happens for you now?
Yeah, we've already seen a vast expansion within our breakfast and lunch programs. We've had to expand our breakfast program to an unlimited amount of individuals and had to expand our lunch program by 25 people, especially within the food insecurity, because people are not able to pay for housing within the capital. They are not able to pay for their groceries. So we've tried to partner with other organizations, with other community members, but it just seems right now that it's hard to do so in such financial restrictions and tough times.
So when he visited D.C. in 2015, Pope Francis did meet with the city's homeless. Do you know what kind of impact the visit might have had on Catholics?
Yeah, I mean, it's just showing the humanity within it all. It's showing that we're all people, that we all have a common sense of good and want to do well for our community and for our country. And so it's just those simple interactions of actually listening to a person, of giving a handshake or a high five. Those are the interactions that make us people at the end of the day and that support the community around us. And Pope Francis coming to DC and showing that just outright, it enlightens people. It makes them go out and show an impact within wherever they are within the city.
And tell us more about the McKenna Center. What does the organization do and how does it serve people?
Yeah, so we serve breakfast and lunch to unhoused men within our community. Again, unlimited amount of breakfast and 75 men for lunch, and then we also provide services that enhance the dignity of individuals, such as laundry services, showers, giving out clothing for the clothing closet. That's been a huge spike, in this hot weather. And then we also give out food, such as fresh produce, eggs, meat, those things, and we let those individuals pick it up themselves to enhance their own confidence and dignity when going through tough situations. So those are some of the services that we provide, and also help those individuals receive birth certificates and identification things and documents that we take for granted.
All right, Abby Hutzel, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
Well, the Republicans' big, beautiful bill will make the poorest Americans even poorer, while the highest earners will benefit the most. That is according to an analysis by Congress's budget arm. Democrats had requested that data. The CBO report projected an uneven resource distribution. The lowest 10% of households would lose $1,200 a year, it says. Middle-income households increase by $800 to $1,200, and the wealthiest 10% rise by more than $13,000, mostly due to tax cuts. CBO also says new work requirements for the government's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, will lead 2.4 million people to lose benefits in an average month. The scene is now secure at a U.S. steel plant outside Pittsburgh. 2 people were killed yesterday after an explosion rocked the coking plant in Clairton. This camera captures the moment the explosion took place. The blast injured 10 people, including one who was trapped for hours in the rubble. Local officials have begun the investigation into what caused this tragedy. One emergency official says 14 fire departments responded to the blast.
There's lots to be investigated. Validate everything that occurred here, and our crews will continue to be here assisting U.S. Steel in that process of reviewing what occurred.
A dramatic scene is caught on camera in the South China Sea as two warships crash into each other. The video shows a Chinese Coast Guard vessel chasing a Philippine boat on Monday. A Chinese destroyer then enters the picture and crashes into its own ship, rendering the Coast Guard boat unseaworthy. The South China Sea is highly contested. The Philippine Coast Guard says its ship was distributing aid to Filipino fishermen in that area. China says the Philippines intruded into waters under the pretense of delivering supplies. Well, happening now, much of Europe is in the middle of a major heat wave with temperatures as high as 111 degrees. That heat is fueling wildfires in southern Europe that have left at least 2 people dead. France, Spain, Greece, and Italy are all fighting fires right now. Elsewhere, high temperatures are driving many people to public fountains. And in Italy, temperatures are so hot that Pope Leo will hold his general audience indoors tomorrow instead of in St. Peter's Square. We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly, including don't bury this story. 10 years after being desecrated by ISIS, we have an update on the tomb of a much revered saint in Syria. And why a statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary, beloved by the faithful in Spain, won't be visible for several months. This month marks 10 years since ISIS desecrated the tomb of a much revered saint in Syria. But the anniversary isn't a somber one. Instead, it's a testament to the hope of Christ and his church. In August of 2015, ISIS raided the historic monastery of Mar Elian in Ar-Qaryatan. Mar means saint in Syriac. They desecrated the tomb and took several hundred Christians hostage. They also took the priest hostage, but today a revival is underway. And joining us to talk more about it is EWTN News contributor Alberto Fernandez. Alberto, thank you for joining us. First off, can you tell us quickly about Mar Elian and his importance?
Well, Mar Elian, or St. Julian the Elder, or St. Julian Sheikh, is a 4th century saint, wonder worker, and ascetic who was connected with St. Ephraim the Syrian, who is one of the doctors of the church, of the Catholic Church. And he died in the 4th century in 367 AD and was buried in this part of Syria. And so a shrine grew up over time, and it was much revered for, well over 1,000 years until the events of 2015.
When ISIS raided the monastery in 2015, what did they do?
Well, they took over the area. There was a military offensive, and they took over the area and took Christians hostage from the village, the town there. But then they, as they like to do in their propaganda, they made a big show of destroying the monastery and specifically destroying the tomb of the saint. And there are videos of bulldozers and explosives and hammers. So they made a big propaganda event out of this incident 10 years ago.
ISIS was eventually, as you know, beaten back by Russian-backed Syrian forces. So what happened after ISIS was defeated?
Well, the local Syrians, local Syrian Catholics went to the ruined site, and lo and behold, they found the bones of the saint and the broken sarcophagus, a Roman marble sarcophagus. So they were able to recover his bones and that of monks that had died and been buried there throughout the year. So they were able to kind of make an emergency fix and put them in another town for safekeeping until the site could possibly be restored.
I'm wondering, what is the monastery like now?
Well, it's partially restored, and obviously, as you saw from the photographs, the saint is back in his tomb, and there are celebrations on his feast day, which is coming up. It's September 9th. But of course, the church in Syria is a poor church. The Christians in Syria are threatened. They certainly need our help and our solidarity. They've done a lot of work to restore the monastery and the site, but there's a lot more that needs to be done.
Of course. Well, Alberto, thanks for joining us. We appreciate the insight.
Thank you.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, Hungry for Peace. An international group of religious sisters unveils an initiative to pray for peace. Plus, learn more about St. Jane de Chantal on her feast day. Renovations begin today on a statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary, beloved by the faithful in Spain. This is the second round of renovations for the image of the Virgin of Hope of Macarena in Seville. A previous change showed a much different statue, complete with fake eyelashes. The order in charge of the statue rejected it and last month voted for a new restoration. With nearly 6 active conflicts in the world, the Church is encouraging the faithful to pray and fast for peace. EWTN Vatican journalist Valentina Di Donato tells us about an initiative started by a group of religious sisters from around the world.
The world is racked by conflict right now. A war has raged between Russia and Ukraine for 3 years. In Gaza, people are starving, with the situation growing dire by the day. And the Pope recently highlighted the violence in Haiti. While there are no immediate resolutions, there is hope in the power of prayer. So the International Union of Superiors General has invited the Church and the world to turn to God through the intercession of Mary, the Queen of Peace, to pray and fast for peace on August 14th, ahead of the Feast of the Assumption.
It's when we are praying together, knowing that others around the world, we find a strength and energy in that, I believe. And if we do the prayer together, not just the personal prayer or the contemplative prayer, but a contemplation together, I think there's a new sense of God speaking to us, so that maybe it can move us beyond feeling overwhelmed, beyond feeling paralyzed or totally helpless, and listening to the call of God. How do we respond to this?
The UISG aims to build a bridge for superiors general of communities of women religious, to develop international networks with the goal of creating different ways for religious sisters to communicate across geographical distances, different languages, and cultures. Sister Roxanne is no stranger to the world's conflicts. She was a missionary in Nairobi during the Rwandan genocide, and she explained how helping refugees actually helped guide her.
The sense of accompaniment has really shaped my life going forward, not just with refugees, but to be with people in their life, in their struggle, in their suffering, and learn together God's presence with us in that reality.
Sister Roxanne reflects on her work in the refugee camps of Tanzania, and on one occasion, a young catechist affirmed that her presence there helped the people remember that God was with them.
Do you know what he said? He said, "Do you see this woman here with us? Do you see how she loves us? Now we know God is with us." I discovered God with us. God is with us in these moments of suffering. God is with us in exile. God is with us as we yearn for peace. And I've come to realize that that deep yearning is really prayer. And that is what will move us then to find ways to respond, to act.
In Rome, Valentina Di Donato for EWTN News Nightly.
Today is the feast day of St. Jane Frances de Chantal, a wife, a mother, and also a nun. She was born in France in 1572. At 21, she married Baron de Chantal and had 6 children. She restored daily mass at her castle and committed herself to charitable works. The Baron died after 7 years of marriage. At the age of 32, she met St. Francis de Sales, who became her spiritual director. Eventually, he created the Order of the Visitation of Holy Mary for Women. St. Jane joined when she was 45 and faced various trials of her spirit, including the death of her son. She died in 1641 and was canonized in 1767 by Pope Clement XIII. St. Jane Frances de Chantal, pray for us. And we thank you so much for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tara Merchiner. Good night and God bless.